What's going on, guys? I'm back today because I want to talk about three players that I think you should be selling in Dynasty. So, we're going to talk about each of those players. I'm going to kind of explain how I evaluate them and why I'm pivoting to other players. And I'll try to mention a few options that might work for you in a trade depending on your league. All right, let's get started. So, Jackson Smith and Jigba had pretty high expectations coming into his rookie season. He was obviously a great prospect. He outperformed Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave at Ohio State when he was a sophomore. Wilson was a junior. Olave was a senior. That was super impressive. He had, I think, 1,600 yards that season. From that point on, he was kind of viewed as the top wide receiver in the 2023 class. So, as a rookie in the NFL, his ADP was pretty high. He comes into a crowded situation in Seattle with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf already there. Obviously, doesn't go super well for him. So he finishes his rookie year with 63 receptions for 628 yards and four touchdowns. Honestly, on paper, that doesn't look really, really bad. Not a total disaster. And I don't think it was a total disaster. We saw Quentin Johnston, we saw Marvin Mims. Those rookie seasons were disastrous. JSN's was not a disaster, but it was disappointing relative to what we expected. The problem now is that I just don't think that the dynasty market has punished him enough for punish is a strong word, has penalized him enough for what he did as a rookie because it does change what we should expect from him moving forward. I think we need to temper expectations with JSN, especially with Lockett returning to Seattle. There are red flags with his production as a rookie. Specifically, if you look at his PFF grade and his yards per out run. I know a lot of people don't take PFF grades very seriously. I understand they're absolutely not perfect, but they do have some signal, especially for rookie wide receivers when you look ahead at their future performance. So, just to that point, if you pull all of the wide receivers drafted in rounds 1 through 3 that had a PFF grade under 65 and a yards per route run under 1.75, these are all marks JSN hit last year. You get a pretty uninspiring sample. He's grouped together with Quentin Johnston and Jalen Hyatt, Jonathan Mingo, Marvin Mims. You go back to the year before, it's Alec Pierce, it's Tyquan Thornton. Before that, Rashad Bateman, Josh Palmer, Michael Pittman. There's a finally a positive comp, I guess you can make for JSN, but the list is rough. Jalen Rager is a player that appears on it. N'Keal Harry, if you go all the way back to 2017, it's just not the kind of group you want to be in. And it's only two metrics. So it's not saying that's the full picture. That's the whole story. It's obviously a limited sample. I'm choosing the cutoff. So it's somewhat arbitrary, but there needs to be a recalibration of our expectations. And I think where he's going right now in startups, the 5'11, the 22nd wide receiver overall. He's going ahead of T. Higgins, ahead of the rookie 108, ahead of Deshaun Watson, ahead of Kenneth Walker. I just don't think that the risk reward there makes a lot of sense to me. He doesn't present a lot of upside, at least in the immediate term. Now that he's going to be competing with DK and Lockett again for targets, even if he's able to surpass Lockett, I don't think Lockett's going away. He graded out pretty well last year per PFF. It's a big leap to just assume he's going to step aside entirely and JSN's going to dominate that second role. And even if he is the clear wide receiver too, that's still not getting it done for me. I think a lot of dynasty managers have this binary mindset where players are either good or they're bad. And so it's obviously absurd to say, well, JSN is now bad because he had only had 63 receptions and 600 something yards as a rookie. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's bad, but he can be good without being impactful enough to justify his cost. There are a lot of wide receivers that are good that don't matter in fantasy. Marquise Brown is good, but he doesn't really move the needle. When he was young, like JSN is now, he was also maybe overpriced. Now that he's 26 and he's dealt with some injuries, now he's being valued much lower, but he could easily provide the same type of fantasy production that JSN is likely to provide in 2024. It's just that there's still this upside that's priced in. I would rather just turn JSN into like a Zay Flowers, a DK Metcalf, Kyle Pitts, if that's still possible, those types of assets, or even better, the rookie 107, rookie 108. That's the range that he's in. I would much rather have the pick, not because I think that the prospect coming out will be a much better prospect than JSN was coming out, but there is value in the unknown. The fact that we haven't seen whoever's coming in as a rookie have kind of a disappointing season, that's a plus in their favor. They're going to have more insulation in dynasty value. And so I would rather just take the shot on that prospect. That 7 or 8 pick, that's probably Rome Odunze or JJ McCarthy, who seems pretty likely to get top 10 draft capital. So that's appealing to me. I would be at least looking into the potential to trade JSN, see if someone in your league is a serious truther who thinks it's too early to give up or whatever, and see if you can move on from him. All right, next up, we've got DeAndre Swift, who just signed with the Chicago Bears, 3 years, $24 million. I was shocked by this contract. I don't get why the Bears wanted to sign this contract. Swift does some things well. I don't think he adds enough value to an offense to justify that kind of investment, especially when you already have Khalil Herbert there, who's arguably a better rusher. And you have Roshan Johnson, who wasn't good as a rookie, but I think is still the guy that they're going to want out there on pass blocking situations, 2-minute drills. It isn't clear to me what Swift is really adding outside of like some more ability in the passing game, more explosiveness on like screen plays. But that's just not worth $24 million to me. Regardless, that's the contract that he got. I'm sure the coaches want to use him in a certain way. They're probably going to make him the lead guy based on that money. So he's going to have a chance to be the lead back in an offense with Caleb Williams. That's exciting. Honestly, the issue for me is just where I see the price going with Swift. I think people are going to be very excited about this. Swift is a player that a lot of the dynasty community has just been in on for so long. I think any excuse to get excited for him is it's going to be over the top. I think he's going to be too expensive in trades. He was already valued kind of around that 201 pick before this move. I think he's only going up from here. So I could absolutely see him getting into the range of like 109, 110. And I'm absolutely out at that price. Swift's season in 2023 is deceptive. It looks like he finally breaks out as a rusher, finally gets 1,000 rushing yards. But in reality, he was in an ideal situation. The Eagles' offensive line graded third per PFF in run blocking, and Swift, meanwhile, did not grade well in really anything. He was 43rd in missed tackles forced per attempt. He was 53rd in yards after contact per attempt. He was 45th in PFF grade. He was making very little out of a great situation. And it honestly isn't that different than Miles Sanders in 2022. I think Swift is the better pass catcher by far. In terms of what they add on the ground, not that much of a difference between Sanders and Swift. We saw Sanders get that big contract from Carolina, and he just did not deliver. By week 9 or 10, he was basically the backup. Chuba Hubbard, who in his own right, I don't think is that good, takes over the backfield. I'm not saying that's exactly what's going to happen to Swift, but it's absolutely in the cards. And for me, there's just too much risk with a player that I don't think is as good as most people think when there's going to be so much excitement around him. Looking at Fantasy Calc's trade database, there are already a lot of deals over the past couple of days with Swift being moved for first round picks. Unfortunately, I can't see where those picks are, so I don't know if they're early or late. I'm frankly moving him for any first round pick, and I'd have to bet some of those are higher than the 111 or the 112. I bet there's some 109s, some 110s, maybe even a 7 or an 8 if there's a manager who's really excited about this contract and this fit with the offense. That's the deal I'm saying you should go out and make. Not that you have to go out and sell him right now. He's actually pretty safe for the rest of the offseason. There's no way they're going to invest heavily in the draft in a running back. Once the team actually drafts Caleb Williams, that's going to be even more excitement. So I think Swift could continue to be a riser over the next few weeks, but I would be looking for that opportunity when it comes to cash out. All right, and the last guy we're going to talk about today is Baker Mayfield, who somehow is a 7th-round startup pick, which was kind of insane to me when I saw it. And then I thought about it for a little while, and I realized what's going on here. And it's that fantasy managers hate uncertainty. They're not comfortable being uncomfortable. So what happens is that players that are viewed as safe become overvalued. This is why zero running back took forever to catch on, because you just feel way better when you have that dead zone running back in your RB2 spot, and you're like so sure they're going to get 250 carries. It doesn't matter if they're good or not. You just feel comfortable about that player having a role. Zero running back is just a lot less comfortable because you don't know where those touches are coming. You have to kind of wait for things to shake out. So we see this in Dynasty as well. Players get pushed up the board because they have points that are kind of, you can count on them. And I guess Baker's now viewed that way because he sort of broke out again this past year, 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. And then he gets the multi-year contract. He won the playoff game, reverse that, won the playoff game, got the contract. Mike Evans is returning. Chris Godwin is there. It all feels kind of secure. It feels comfortable. But the problem is that the production is not that valuable. It's very replaceable production when you get down to it. We know with Baker that the upside's not really there. He's not a rusher, obviously, and he's not the type of passer like Justin Herbert, a CJ Stroud. He's not going to flirt with 5,000 passing yards or 40 passing touchdowns in any season. he's much closer to like a Derek Carr or maybe a Jared Goff type of quarterback. And that can have value. But when the price is as high as it is, I would much rather look for that production elsewhere. Right now, he's in the seventh round. He's being valued alongside assets like Devontae Adams, the rookie 110. That's just a high price to pay for what's frankly a floor play at quarterback. He scored 16.8 points per game last year. That was 17th at the position. And it was exactly the same points per game that we saw from Josh Dobbs. We had Jake Browning coming in at 16.6, Sam Howell at 16.3. Geno Smith, who's right now going like 3 rounds after Baker, had 15.8. So a difference of 1 point per game. And I know people are going to say, well, Baker's 5 years younger than Geno, so he's a lot safer and he's going to play longer. And to that I say, Daniel Jones just signed a long-term contract a year ago after winning a playoff game and seemed to be a safe quarterback asset. And where is he now? There are troll accounts on Twitter saying he's going to be released, and people actually believe it because it's believable. So let's not sit here and pretend like Baker is locked in, but let's just say that he is. Let's just say that he's a safe quarterback who does exactly what he did this past season every season for the next 5 years. I still think that that's overpriced. You can go into each season and you can buy these cheap quarterbacks that are kind of fill-in guys. Maybe they only play half a season. Or maybe they're like a Geno who you could buy in 2022 for almost nothing and they play the whole season and they give you that same production. Or like Baker just a year ago, you could buy him for a mid third round pick and all of a sudden he wins a starting job. He plays the whole season. Now, not only do you get that production, but you also are getting all the value increase from that, and you can then go and sell him or trade him for other pieces that strengthen the rest of your roster. So I just never want to put myself in a position where I'm paying everything up front for safety. It's like I'm paying insurance, right? Like I'm paying an extra cost for what I view as a safe asset, when in reality, he can still get injured and he could also regress from last season. Dave Canales is with the Panthers now. We just don't know what's going to happen exactly. And I think that it's a mistake to put too much value on what we view as safe. Right now, I don't know who those cheap quarterback options are all going to be, but as we get closer to the season, you're going to start to see those options open up when we know which sort of fringe quarterbacks are going to land starting jobs, right? Who's going to start for Denver? Is Daniel Jones going to start for the Giants? You can find these value quarterbacks later. You just have to be comfortable waiting it out right now and just knowing like in March, you don't need to fill out your starting lineup and know exactly who you're going to play every single week. It's okay to wait until the summer. You can make trades later. Just worry about trying to make your team more valuable and acquiring upside. That's what you should be doing. And I think everything else will kind of figure itself out from there. All right, guys, that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you can get some trades done in your leagues. If you found this helpful, please subscribe. It goes a long way. Leave a comment if you have any ideas for content I should cover in the future, or if you have seen a trade recently involving any of these players, I'd love to know what they were traded for. Just kind of add to the discussion a little bit. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next one.